The Trump administration is also weighing in on the separatist movement in Alberta. One senior official says Albertans are, quote, very independent people and that the U.S. is a natural partner for the province.
Alberta is a wealth of natural resources, but they won't let them build a pipeline to the Pacific. I think we should let them come down into the U.S. Rumors that they may have a referendum on whether they want to stay in Canada or not.
Sounds like you may know something up there.
People are saying, people are talking. People are talking. People want sovereignty. They want what the U.S. has got.
Those comments from the Treasury Secretary are getting some pushback in this country, and Dan Burrett is here to walk us through that pushback and you know, what has led to this debate here.
Yes, and it's not a rumor that he uses that word. It is an actual movement. It is a push by the Alberta Prosperity Project to have a referendum on Alberta becoming an independent from Canada. So they've been, the movement says they've been gathering signatures. Their momentum is growing, they claim. They had a sizable crowd come out in Red Deer on Wednesday, and we spoke with some people about why they support independence.
We need a voice, and I don't think that we're heard here in Alberta as they are in the East.
Too busy paying all of our taxes out East, and we get nothing back in return. And the people here have to work extremely hard.
I support separation because we need to, every province should be able to make their own money and support themselves.
So this movement has been collecting signatures since last month. They need 177,732 signatures by May. And if they get that, Albertans could vote on a referendum to support independence as soon as the fall. It's not guaranteed. Where does that support lie? Well, we've seen some polling recently. Polera did a survey recently, Sarah. It was released today. The polling was done in December. They found only 1/5 of Albertans that they asked actually support independence. 1,000 people they asked, 75% said no, 19% said yes to independence. They call it a very vocal minority versus a quiet supermajority in this case. But another firm, Research Co., did a survey from earlier in January. It found 31% of 703 Albertans asked at least support the idea of independence. And it's in fact a higher percentage of young adults between 18 and 34 that support the idea of an independent Alberta. Snapshots in time, we have to emphasize.
Absolutely. Something that has definitely sparked a lot of conversation. And among those who are talking about it, we are hearing from leaders in Alberta. Certainly, I mean, Rafi was talking about it, leaders in Ottawa as well.
That's right. Let's start with the official opposition leader in Alberta. Naheed Nenshi says he has a question for those who support independence in light of Bessent's comments.
What did we think was going to happen? The separatist leaders have bragged about their meetings in the United States with senior decision makers. So the ironic thing here is people who think the separatist talk is about independence, if they're successful, they may find themselves in a less independent Alberta than ever.
And as we heard from Rafi, the federal finance minister, François-Philippe Champagne, also weighed in on this. And we should note, he mentioned the Alberta-Ottawa MOU around energy, but that does not guarantee a pipeline to the Pacific.
We have signed an MOU with Alberta. Canadians are proud people. Canadians know how to build resources. Canadians know how to grow our economy. Canadians are very proud. We're a proud nation with proud values and a very strong economy. So I would say no, thanks, but no thanks. We will do our own things, and we will be able to develop our resources with Albertans, with Canadians, and that's something that will remind him next time I see him.
And on the other side of the push for independence in Alberta, another citizen-led petition to try and have a referendum to keep Alberta in Canada, Sarah, has gathered more than 438,000 signatures for its side.
Yeah, good to note. Thank you, Dan.
Cheers.
Okay, we want to take a look at what's happening on the ground in Alberta. And so for that, we are going to Rob Breakenridge. He's a columnist at the Calgary Herald, joining us now in that city. Rob, good to have you on this.
Hi.
Hi. So I want to start with the comments by the U.S. Secretary Treasury Scott Bessent. This is not, this is someone who is the highest ranking member of the Trump administration to weigh in on the province of Alberta's politics. Do you think that this impacts the conversation around separatism in Alberta?
I think it will. I think we're starting to see American officials play their hand a little bit here. And we've seen lower down figures. There was a Republican congressman this week, even going back a couple of months ago on Steve Bannon's podcast. Steve Bannon, of course, a close ally of Donald Trump, where we've seen much more overt comments about taking over Alberta being the 51st state, all of this oil and mineral wealth, or the idea that it's almost a gateway of sorts to the Arctic. Those are the kinds of things that we've heard said at a lower level. Now, Scott Bessent didn't go so far as to say any of that, but it's pretty clear he's talking about Alberta sort of working with or joining up or partnering with Alberta, and mentioning this whole business with a pipeline, which is strange because, we do have a pipeline to the West Coast and hopefully another one. But the U.S. doesn't have any pipelines to the West Coast. It would be odd that the U.S. would allow a Canadian pipeline to go across American soil so the Canadian oil can go to Asia. So there is something else going on here.
What else do you think is going on?
Well, again, I think it's a case of exploiting divisions within Canada at a bare minimum, and probably even more than that. We saw it pretty overtly with Greenland, and even to some extent with Venezuela, that the U.S. has national interests. They're going to be very unabashed in pursuing those. And certainly when oil and other valuable minerals come into play, that's just a further incentive. So Alberta has that. There is a separatist movement in Alberta. If they can sort of lend support to that, cause division within Canada, and even potentially create a separate Alberta that they could take advantage of, maybe even incorporate into the United States. And look, there are some separatist leaders who have embraced or been open to this idea of the U.S. Taking over Alberta. I think they wanted to keep it out of this whole referendum campaign because even though, as you heard previously, separatist support is somewhere between 20 and 30%, but support for joining the U.S. is way lower. And if Donald Trump is going to become the face of a yes or no vote in Alberta to leave the country, I think that makes the whole thing much more unpalatable to Albertans. So, yeah, separatists kind of want to have it both ways. They want to kind of keep the U.S. out of the conversation, but they've been going to Washington asking for help, doing this outreach with American officials. But it seems like American officials are done being quiet about it.
On Power and Politics, I was listening to an interview, and the words foreign interference were used to describe this kind of talk coming from the Trump administration. And I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but do you think that the people of Alberta maybe would see it that way? Both those who maybe do support separatism and those who do not.
Well, potentially, yeah. I think separatists have tried to keep the conversation along the lines of, should Albertans be in charge of their own destiny? We can sort of free ourselves from being under Ottawa's thumb. They won't be making the decisions for us anymore. We'll chart our own path. And I think that's got some level of appeal. If you say, to folks who are going to swap Ottawa for Washington, or we're going to be under Washington's thumb instead of Ottawa's, that's far less appealing. So, yes, I think that's a real challenge and something that Canadians, not just in Alberta, should be paying close attention to. And I think it does amount to some foreign interference. Remember how angry Donald Trump got because of a TV commercial quoting Ronald Reagan that Ontario ran. This is far more blatant foreign interference. And what else might that look like? It's one thing to have administration officials weighing in, but what about money flowing into this campaign? What about the scenario where Albertans reject separation, but the U.S. or the president decides it was probably rigged, so maybe we need to get involved somehow. So there's a number of ways this can go. And if this vote is going to happen, I think it's incumbent on Alberta to make sure that we've got safeguards in place to try to keep this foreign interference out.
For those for the rest of the provinces, the viewers who are watching this, who are maybe certainly not as close to the politics of Alberta and where things stand. We were just looking at pictures of Albertans braving, I think you could describe it as bone-chilling temperatures in order to sign a petition in order to force a vote on possible independence. What should we be left with in terms of the real drive for this to happen? What's your sense as to the kind of support it either does or doesn't happen? Because the polls, I feel, are a little bit mixed in terms of painting that picture.
That's the thing. Yeah, I think the separatist movement is a long way from the majority, but I don't think Canadians should be complacent, or Albertans, who are federalists, shouldn't be complacent either. That there's some long-standing, and I think in a lot of cases, legitimate grievances about how Alberta's been treated. And I think even just recently, have election after election after election where Albertans want one thing, and it's like we don't have a say over who's in charge. I think that's part of the perception here. So I think to be aware of some of these issues. Look, I think the MOU between Alberta and Ottawa goes a long way in demonstrating to Albertans that this country can work for us, and there is progress that can be made even if we disagree with various policies. So I think it's important. And I mean, there's a similar element, I suppose, with regard to Quebec and the possibility of a referendum there. The national unity, we shouldn't take it for granted and understand that the different regions of the country have different concerns, and that there is some danger, I think, in ignoring or dismissing those concerns.
Rob Breakenridge, a columnist with the Calgary Herald. Great to have your perspective tonight. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Sarah.